Good evening. It is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. We are the East Haddam Board of Education Business and Planning Subcommittee. Tonight is the middle school budget. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Northcutt.
Good morning, good evening. It's nice to see all of you. It's still like good morning. So I'm going to first start with the presentation.
Yep. There it is. Nope. Okay. Ready?
Right. I wanted to first start off by saying thank you for the support that you've given the middle school. It really makes a difference. So thank you so much for showing up for the events that we had. The one with the parent talk, it was really nice seeing you and just supporting our rock garden and everything else. So your efforts are seen and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our focuses for this year are inclusivity, actionable feedback, engagement, staff morale, project lead the way, and enrichment. So when presenting the budget, you're going to see things that align with that. But everything that we're asking for, we're trying to do at the school, they go back to our main focus for Nathan Hillbrain Middle School. For inclusivity, in the budget, it's reflected supply for the rock garden and supporting materials. We had the unified sports. They had an inclusion campaign that they did this year, and it was events all throughout the week. And from the rocks that the students created, we're going to put them all around the school for our inclusive rock garden. And it was really great just to see the messages that the students did, and they elected to do it during their lunch, and it was all student led. Next, we have our waffle breakfast, and we've kind of rebranded it. So it's going to be our SBAC kickoff. Last year, it was for students who had the 3 A's, but in finding that if a student did not earn 3 A's in 4th grade, sometimes they're not going to earn it in 8th grade, and those students are constantly not included. So we found a way to include all of the students, and this goes with restorative practices and creating a space for all students to be represented within the school. Next, we have Kendrick Moore, who's a guest speaker, and he works with the noisemakers, but he also did assemblies for the full school. And even on our wall, we have Everything Matters, because that is something that he taught the students and he's leaning into. And as far as when you're walking into a room, everyone belongs there, and that's the message that he's sending. And our noisemakers have really taken on to that. So when they did our It Takes All Eight to Celebrate assembly for the students for kicking off iReady testing, they were using a lot of what Kendrick Moore said. Our noisemakers, I call them the core of the school. They truly are our leaders. They take something and they run with it. They are charismatic, and they really push a lot of the initiatives that we have within the school, and they're a part of so many different activities, which is pretty amazing to see. So you'll see things in our budget reflecting for the noisemakers, such as their shirts or the guest speakers that help with our noisemakers. Lastly, I have the middle school track team. A lot of our students are a part of the middle school track club, and they say it brings them confidence. They learn about perseverance, and it's something that it's another way to include all students within the school, having an additional activity for students to join in, especially because they enjoy it. And that brings me to my next slide. I am not really great with sports. I have a younger daughter now, and we're trying to get into it. So when I was thinking about middle school track, I had to do a lot of research about track in general. But one thing that I found is that people who are most successful with track, they started at an earlier age, and they didn't just wait till high school. So I like Flojo a lot because of her nails, but she started the age of 8, age of 7, age of 12. So it would be key to have it in the middle school or during middle school, so that students will be able to start now and then go on through their years with it and be successful. Next, we get into actionable feedback. At Nathan Hillbrain Middle School, we're really leading into building thinking classrooms, and something that Peter talks about for building thinking classrooms is giving that feedback. Sometimes when you take a test, you won't get the feedback till maybe a week later, a couple of days, but in building thinking classrooms, you get the feedback from your peers who are in a group of 3 with you, or from your teacher, because the teacher is now they're able to facilitate around the classroom as opposed to being the beacon of knowledge. So that is something that we are doing as a full school, mostly grades 5 through 8 and math and science. However, a lot of teachers like an ELA and fourth grade teachers, they are also starting to incorporate building thinking classrooms. And the supplies for it include a vertical non-permanent surface, so like a whiteboard, but we also have used lockers and windows. And you go through markers like crazy, like the expo markers, because you're constantly writing on them. So that is something that we had to account for as well. Next, our 8th grade social studies teacher, he wants to bring in Pear Deck. And I just want to say that he is one of the teachers that like dressed up for our Constitution Convention. So even though this is an online activity for students to use, like to be built in their PowerPoints, they're not just going to be like sitting and glued to a computer. It's going to be engaging, but this is great because it's interactive presentation. It has a formative assessments, and he'll be able to differentiate, but also give feedback in real time. Sorry. Next, for engagement, there are things budgeted for PBIS or incentives and also SDCS support. And for PBIS, each grade does something differently. Most recently, we did a testing kickoff, and that's Mr. Trotter, and he has our cart of incentives here. And if students are doing any of the 8 to celebrate for testing, and that includes like going back and rereading their answers, using scrap paper for their math questions, or taking their time or having a positive mindset, they received a raffle ticket. And then he would come with the cart during lunch waves, and he would pull out 4 raffle tickets, and the students would be able to pick a prize. And you'll see in the next slide like how that correlated to our success for iReady testing. Also for SDCS support, we have 2 big initiatives that are occurring right now. One is the Read Bowl and just our overall reading scoreboard. And that was created from the SDCS project of Mr. Anderson, Ms. Michaud, and also Ms. McKenzie. They wanted to build a culture of reading. So we were thinking about how we can do that as a school. And also we had our parent workshop series, and that was led by Ms. Braza, Ms. Akehurst, and also Ms. Rafala. And that was from their SDCS project. And for SDCS, teachers are researching and they're really diving into what they can do to improve the school climate and just learning in general. So if we're able to provide books or additional like professional development or anything for them to go to, then that will help our overall school community. And then our next slide, this is from our recent iReady testing where we had the testing kickoff. And I wanted to show 4th grade in particular because we took the idea 8 to celebrate from them. And they had their own testing kickoff as they normally do. And they went from 3% for mid or above grade level to 21%. And that is a huge jump. And as a school, we went from 7% mid or above grade level to 15%. And I do feel that having students just go in with a positive mindset for testing, it impacted them because a person who believes they can and a person who believes they can't, they're both correct.
Fantastic.
Next, we have the Boston Freedom Trail, and Mr. Riccio, he would like this for his grade. And this is an authentic learning experience where students will be able to travel to Boston and go on the Freedom Trail. And this is an activity for students. They'll be able to engage in primary source research to justify why patriot colonists sought independence. But basically, it's a way for students to get out and understand like history and to go back in time and see what happened. And they're not just learning about it through text, they're able to see it in person. And Mr. Riccio is an awesome educator. I do have to say, for Veterans Day, the students, they engage in the Patriots Pen essay, and he does a lot more than what's just like in the curriculum, and he extends. And even if you're in his class, if he's talking about a subject, he will like add on. He has different articles that he brings in. And if a student brings up something that they're passionate about, he's able to like go on with them and have them dig down like deeper to find out more. So I included this article about staff morale because it's really not just a top-down approach. In order to help students learn and to have learning occur in classrooms, teachers, they are in direct contact with students. So it's important that they feel happy and safe within the learning environment and also respected. So like honoring their existing cultural funds of knowledge, if they're passionate about something, making sure it's reflected within the school environment. And it's important that we recognize and value the teachers here because they do a lot of work that is seen and unseen. An example of that would be our postcard initiative, We had teachers who were finishing up grading, teachers who are planning lessons, and they still were able to write postcards for all their students to receive them like over the winter break. And that's really admirable. So these are some things that we did for staff morale. We did like costumes and camaraderie. We had a costume competition, and it's inclusive for all of the staff. So this is our cafeteria team. They won the funniest costumes. I thought it was a really great thing that they did. And also we had winter staff appreciation. So leading up to the break, we were able to just kind of love on our teachers. Teaching in itself is a very selfless profession. So it is nice to have or to get a thank you. Also, I included in the principal's budget and or supplies for building thinking classroom. Myself and Ms. Erlinson, we go into classrooms, we will model lessons, we give professional development so that teachers are able to see it in real time. And being an instructional leader is important because if you're able to model what practices or anything new, then teachers are able to see it and implement it in their classroom. Also, it shows that you are vulnerable and that you are able to still engage students. So we are really big on being instructional leaders, and that is something that is reflected in the budget as well. Next, we have Project Lead the Way, and that's with Mr. Badala, who I call Mr. Wonderful. And I have to say that he is an amazing educator. This is a lot of hands-on learning and also critical thinking and problem solving. I included the Lego kits because that is something that he uses within his class, but students are engaged in hands-on learning. And when you're in his class, you won't even know like when class is about to be over because you're just so engaged and time just flies by. So these are some of the activities that he did. One is they were making fidgets. So they had to read about a student. They had to create a fidget for them. And then they had to do it on the computer. And then he was able to 3D print them. And there is in the budget for a screen. And the reason is because he would have to fit all of that in his classroom, and he is. But when you go in there, it's really cramped. So what we are going to do is move him over to room 300, hopefully get a screen, but that way all the projects can be out and the students can also see what they're doing because they're making a lot of great things, but it's kind of just put in one area currently. Next, we have enrichment, and this is the activity that the enrichment students worked on this year, and we earned the East Haddam Spirit as for our scarecrow. And we also had the Family Expo showcase, and it was great because students got to work on their public speaking skills. It was a summation activity where they worked all semester, and then they were able to present their projects. And the one big takeaway for me was the smiles and the confidence that the students had, and they felt a lot of pride. From that expo, I learned about Sabrina Carpenter. I'm kind of a fan of her music now because Claire Wallen, like for her project, she did it on Sabrina Carpenter, and I did not know about her before, even the fact that she was an actress. So I learned a lot just by going and engaging in the event. And next, I prepared a video because I think that the students truly see it best and like to see what is going on in the school and also what's reflected in the budget.
And what skills have you learned through track that you currently apply in school?
Track teachers, every coach I've had has told me to push and keep trying. And I think that that is something that you can apply to.
Thank you. Skills have you learned through track that you currently apply in school?
A lot of the coaches are something like coach similar to teachers, and it's like very helpful because it's something that's like especially fun to me, like sports, and it helps me behave better in school. Listening.
How has being involved in track benefited you personally?
It benefits me because it makes me more athletic and more open to decisions.
And what skills have you learned through track that you currently apply in school?
I apply that I stay focused, I can wait, and patience. Remember? Control it. Five. You have learned to use the aid to celebrate challenges with testing. Even when the task that you are completing is unpleasant, we are all capable of logging in, and as Patrick Moore reminded us earlier in the school year, we are competing against every kid in the country. And remember, there are prizes on the line. Let's log in now and celebrate later. Testing is something we have to do, but having fun is something we choose to do. Thank you. I'm sure all of you athletes have heard it. It's like 99% mental, 1%. Because that's really how it is. It genuinely is. I think you just have to keep going. You just have to keep pushing yourself. And if you go into high school, if you go into the next stage of your life, and you feel like everything's going great,
Anyone have a question before we dive into the numbers?
Tissues.
Oh,
Yes.
at the end, right here,
here.
Laurel.
Thank you.
John?
So a little off topic, but I was just curious, how many noisemakers do we have? You know, or roughly?
I want to say like roughly maybe like 40 or.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. That's all.
I wanted to comment on the track thing because I agree 100%. I'm not a sports person either, but when my kids were here at the middle school, I was involved in that program as well. And it was an after-school program. And it's been going on for quite some time, trying to get this into a formalized setting. We didn't have a high school track at the time, so it was constantly just the kids running around on the campus here, or same thing at the high school. So it would be really nice to get that in a more organized way. I really hope we can find the money to do that. And I'm really excited to see all the work being done with handwork, writing up on the boards, putting the little kits together, active, engaged learning. It's so refreshing to get them away from the desk. It's just such a nice thing to see it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with what Laurel said essentially. And maybe I'll have more questions as we go through the budget, but I just think it's great. It sounds like the kids are really collaborating with each other. They're, they're not sitting all of the time at their desks. They're actually getting up and moving around and working in groups. So that's so awesome.
Thank you. I'm actually the only board member that has a middle schooler right now. I've been impressed because my student is in 4th grade. And he's really enjoying his time here. And I was very nervous as a parent to send him up to this big school. And I definitely think your staff morale is correct because he's said only positive things about the staff. And I think that's really nice. And for anyone that's listening for the track team, I think we all would be, well, I'm speaking out, for myself, I guess, we're all for it. I would just recommend following the budget process. Our Board of Ed budget is due to Board of Finance March 1st. Board of Finance goes over every town department's budget, including the Board of Ed in that month. And they are the ones who really make the call on the dollar figure, whether you get an increase, or nothing, or a decrease. So follow along if anyone's listening. And then the referendum is usually May, and make sure you're registered and get out to vote. And you don't just we're not always the bad guys. There is a process, so I would recommend anyone listening to follow the whole process, so.
Thank you. Just not to interrupt, but there are opportunities for tri-board meeting.
Yep.
That people can come to and speak, and then there'll be public hearings as well. So.
Right, and the tri-board meeting too, for anyone listening, is next Wednesday, which is January 29th. At 7 p.m. at the Municipal Office Complex. Tri-board is your Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Education meets all together. I'll turn it back over to you, so dive us into the numbers.
Okay, so we're just gonna go line by line from the beginning.
Or anything that has significance differences, I guess, really, because I think some of it's self-explanatory.
Right.
For anyone listening or watching too, we have wage increases and that's due to contracts, so. Any of those line items you probably could just skip really, because that's a contract item.
Okay. I can start with the audio and visual. That's the first one that jumps out. On line 14.
13.
The 14 is the one that
14.
probably has the biggest.
Yes. So we would like to add, we wanted to add Promethean board to room 300 and replace one that was in 702. That was then reduced to monitors, but it would be for Mr. Badala's room. Right now, currently, he has a smaller classroom and the students are making a lot of projects and it is difficult to navigate that in the space. So we would like to have him use room 300, and having a monitor there means that he would be able to teach and instruct from that room. Also in room 702, there was a Promethean board that was now since moved to a different teacher's classroom, but we use that classroom for building thinking classrooms. It has the board space and also the windows. So Mr. Mayhew, he'll go to that classroom and he'll use it. We have all the supplies there, and other teachers will use it as well. If I'm doing building thinking classrooms PD, then we're using that space as well. So it is something that would be necessary for teaching and learning.
Can you tell us the difference between a monitor and this is a Promethean board, right? So this is hands-on.
Yes.
What's a monitor?
A monitor, like you would be able to plug it in. It's almost like it's just a kind of a
Screen.
screen. Yeah,
Projector,
like a
like it
projector.
projects from
Mhm.
your computer.
So do students use the Promethean board, like hands-on usually, or teachers use it hands-on?
They do, both can. Like if we're building thinking classrooms, like I'm thinking in Miss Akehurst's room, the students will use a Promethean board to do like the work on it. But if we had a monitor in room 702, then we would be able to like to display if the students are working. Thinking of like QFT that or PD I just went to, like we can display a picture before and after, and then they would be able to do the work around it. So we wouldn't necessarily, we could like use a monitor for that room. And then Mr. Badal, he's not exactly using board work during that, so he would be able to project what his lesson is for that day.
So are you comfortable with monitors versus Promethean boards?
I am.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. The next line item would be 21. And there was an increase because of staff appreciation materials, building thinking classroom materials, professional development materials, SDCS supporting materials. So like if a teacher says that they're really interested in a book that supports their SDCS project, then we would be able to make sure they would get that book. Raptor badge paper, and also like Canva licenses. We have like there's an event, we like to have flyers, and we use Canva for it. So just making sure we have the license to make it so it looks pretty and people will want to attend.
They said sentimental.
You said sentimental. I
It's
was like,
sad.
what?
Birthday. It's had a long day.
Or if people, can you slide it over a little, just a bit, so people can
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the superintendent notes in there
I
too.
know.
The only note on the custodial is that we are moving, like I say, to every single one, that we are moving the custodial budgets to to system-wide after
Okay.
this is over with.
I appreciate that, actually. I think it's gonna make for a better financial management of that stuff, because every department is using it, and it just makes sense that it's all in one unit that we can sort of keep a handle on.
That
Are
was
you-
the intent. It didn't make sense to have it in instructional
Yeah.
supplies. It really does make sense. That's facilities.
So is everything gonna be ordered to central office then?
It not two. It's managed through central office, but the deliveries still go to the designated
Okay.
locations.
It's being handled that way now, it's just the budgets in each one of the different schools. And then when it's in the system-wide, it'll just be one line item, but we will actually have it still. Because the state requires us to let them know exactly how much we spend in each school. So it's still gonna be designated and still being processed the way it's being processed now, it's just gonna all go into one.
Okay.
One budget.
Okay, so we go to line item 34. So the regular education general supplies, there was an increase due to a demand for supplies this year due to several factors, and that includes building thinking classrooms. A lot of teachers are buying those materials for their classrooms, and like one board can range you $60 or so. So get that for a full class. We also have like an increase in expo markers, and you need playing cards for it. And unless you're like laminating them, you need several playing cards for it to get your randomized grouping. So that is something that was there. We also added a peer deck, and that was something that Mr. Batchelder wanted as far as using it for if you're having a PowerPoint presentation, you're able to do formative assessment, have quizzes in, so it's more of an interactive experience. For art instruction supplies, that's line item 37. There was the cost increase due to the rise in prices. It was similar to what was ordered last year, but there was a rise in the prices. That's what is reflected there. For line item 42, it was similar to line item 34. And then there was an increase due to the materials such as building thinking classroom materials, interactive project. new books for a unit, journals to build writing stamina. In Mr. Anderson's class, they write for about like 7 minutes and he engages in it too. So it's really cool to like walk into a classroom and see the teacher writing along with the students. Also books to enhance the classroom libraries and the rise of costs and items.
What's the comment on the other end of that that says need account for general supply?
So I'm still behind with ClearGov getting my accounts updated. So there isn't an account in ClearGov for general supplies for language arts, so. $1,184 of that is actually a general supply, not necessarily an instructional supply, it's a supply for the teachers. But I had to lump it all together because I didn't get the ClearGov to be a new account yet.
And
We're
what,
not changing any value.
It's
just
not
a-
changing.
it's
the
a-
value
An
at all, it just
internal
will be
note
kind of
to
split
get
it
it done.
into.
what would be the difference between language art instructional supply and general supply?
So instructional supplies are used directly for the students
Right.
and general supplies are usually used just overall for all the teachers within the language arts area, so.
Like a reasonable board. It's like for the general supplies.
Yeah.
It's a fine line when you get down.
For language arts resource media, the cost decreased because the teachers are utilizing Brain Pop and Scholastic Storyworks under the periodical line item, sorry.
Yeah.
And then for world language, the cost increased because to account for the culture responsive school assembly, they would like to have a school assembly with something that pertains to their class would be culturally responsive in nature.
And that's something that you would have a speaker come in for, or?
Yes, and I can tell you, Ms. Demila, she recently had her husband in as a speaker as well. And the students, they enjoy that experience. Like I went in there asking questions. He was teaching them about Spain. And it was something that they had learned about in class and they were able to ask him questions and get more information. And I feel like it made learning come to life. So they do like it when there are assemblies.
Yeah.
For general supplies again, the cost increased due to supplies needed to support building thinking classrooms. And it was really cool to even go through the budget because we did a building thinking classroom PD for the full staff, but we mostly focused on math and science. But when I went through like the budget for other subject matters, they had the supplies there to do it as well. So it's nice that like everyone kind of wants to implement it within their classroom. Also, we have World CAF activities, and that's something students do after school, and they get to make food from different places. And they enjoy that. Also, student organizational needs such as folders and giant sticky note pads, and an overall just rise in cost. For math, general supplies, there was an increase and it was for costs associated with student rewards to support motivation and promote positive learning environment. And that goes along with their PBIS. And there is a system for it where students are, they have to go over like different standards. And if they're showing that, then there are rewards. In some classes, they use like Class Dojo. Other have like the duck club that they have for 4th grade, but there are different things that each grade level does. And it's not uniform because depending on the grade level, they change it like to cater to their students, like something that an 8th grader likes may not be the same thing that a 4th grader likes. So that's also like reflected. For math instructional supplies, the cost increased to support items for building thinking classrooms, including the whiteboard markers, lights, and how you can use the lights for building thinking classroom is like if a student's stuck or a group feels like they're okay, like they can use the lights, and that's something like the Facebook group for building thinking classrooms, like they suggest that you use. The more that you're diving into building thinking classroom, there's a lot of different ways and techniques to use it. So this teacher is a little bit more like further along in their building thinking classroom journey, and they wanted to use the lights. Also tape, you need a lot of tape to put the boards up, especially if you're using like painter's tape. Hands-on activities, games, and manipulatives, as well as the overall cost of equipment. For math resource media, teachers are utilizing resources within iReady and Enhancing Learning with hands-on materials and manipulatives. So there are like a lot of different things that they're using. they're using like the supplies that is in iReady. And they, during their, like their staff time when they're going over their curriculum, then they're pulling out things in iReady that they can use that will supplement their teaching in class. For line item 67, the cost increased due to, it was a field trip that integrated content to promote team building along with the associated bus costs, and that field trip was Camp Hazen. And they're one at the end of the year, Camp Hill. But for Camp Hazen, students went on it at the beginning of the year, and I definitely feel like that's what helped the 8th grade team build their community. And then now I think it's Monday, they have their town hall meetings and they sit and they can do an acknowledgement and also an apology, like circle. And I was there the first time they had like the apology, and it was a student apologizing to a teacher for not doing their homework. And that was pretty cool. And then there were times that they like welcomed new students in, and they did it all through the town hall meeting. But I feel like that came about from their trip to Camp Hazen, because there's a lot of team building and also problem solving and what to do if you get into a conflict. So the skills that they learned at the beginning of the year, they're still applicable now.
Can I ask how that fell under a science field trip? I understand now moving it to the student activity field trip, but to have it itemized under science.
It was the science teacher that
Yeah.
organized it, so they put it under their
Under her
board.
budget,
It
okay.
didn't make sense to have either one of them as related to a particular field.
Yeah.
So it's still in there, it's just down under student activity.
Yeah.
For line item 74, we have resources that support building thinking classrooms, and we're diving into building thinking classrooms, especially for science. The science teacher or some of the science teachers, they went to voluntary PD, and that happened Tuesdays from, I think it was like 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It was a very long night, but it was great because we had like a Google sheet going with like notes that we were taking from the PD. We would talk about it after. They started voluntary, like reading their building thinking classroom books. So they're very much dedicated.
That happened over like 5 weeks. I had shared that information.
Thursday night from 6:30 to 8:30.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. It's like right in the middle of bedtime. My daughter's on like the Google Meet with us. And
That's
we learned a
commitment.
lot. Yes.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow.
For line item 79, there was an increase for resources to support Project Lead the Way. Specifically want to have a 5th grade cohort, and that includes materials for the 3D printer and also associated costs in a makerspace. And the students really thrive in Project Lead the Way. It's a lot of hands-on learning. Like even when you go to the classroom, it's funny because whether it's like the end of the day or the very morning, students are just like flocking to Mr. Vidal, like, what are we doing next? Or can I see that 3D item? Or like they're just in there. And I truly believe that he's able to engage students because it's hands-on, because you're able to like make something. So you're seeing it from the beginning to the end, and they're proud of it. Like even when they had the keychains that were 3D printed, a lot of them have them like hanging off their backpack, but it was a sense of pride.
Absolutely.
And for line item 80, same thing, resources to support Project Lead the Way. For the social studies field trip, I know I spoke about that, but that is the field trip to Boston and also the associated cost for that, and that's an authentic learning experience for students. Also, Lake Compounds was included because for this one, the social studies teacher, 6th grade, they're having it, so they all took like a portion of it. But this would be their ending field trip for them. I mean, team building, especially because they're all going to 7th grade together. So it's just a nice way to kind of wrap everything up. Line item 89. There is an increase to support building a school-wide culture of reading and emphasizing the importance of utilizing text in class. So this is a way to get students reading more in social studies for like the periodicals. So they're reading more and they're able to interpret and kind of just get a different way of life and understanding. Line item 92, we added two paras. They were since removed, but that was something that shows an increase. And they were removed, we're focusing on tier one instruction and what we can do to like influence tier one instruction. So investing in building thinking classrooms, investing in like more articles for students to read in social studies that will help support that. And also making it so that the teacher is facilitating the lesson as opposed to directing, because if I'm facilitating and I have a lesson extension while the students are working on their lesson extension, I would be able to like to pull a small group if possible. So like utilizing the time and space that I have within the classroom without adding like an extra body. From line item 97. This is reading and language arts pilot materials to ensure vertical alignment of curriculum for grades K through 5. And this is a placeholder once we just touch it.
Gets tired.
Once we find out what's being used at the elementary school, we then want to have it at the middle school also, so that they're not jumping from like curriculum to curriculum, they'll have experience with it. And that way, if we are testing to figure out growth, if we don't have like the implementation dip where they tested one way in elementary school, then they get to middle school and they have to learn an entirely new way to do it, we can just see the growth that's occurring. So this is a placeholder. And Miss McKenzie, she communicates a lot with the elementary school to figure out what they're doing, so that way we can have it at the middle school. And one thing that we did this year is we all went to science of reading, professional development, so that way we are able to use components of that within the middle school. So when students come from elementary to middle school, it won't be a big jump, and there'll be more of a vertical alignment. Next for line item 100. This is a quote to provide personalized instruction for students in vocabulary, grammar, comprehension, math, and social studies. The order is for 375 students for language arts and it's IXL, grades 4 through 8, and then 225 students for math IXL, grades 4 through 6, and 75 students for social studies IXL, grade 6. To get more information, like as I was doing the budget process, I did go to an MTSS meeting and I asked one of the 5th grade teachers who use the IXL, like, what are your feelings about this? And do you think that it's worth it essentially? And they said that their students did over 25,000 questions based off of it. And from that, they were able to see growth. And I know that 4th grade uses it. And if we go back to their iReady scores, they went from 3 to 23%. So that is a huge jump. And now that they're doing like IABs, we're also seeing growth. So they use it during like their morning time and they're using it with Fidelity, and we're able to see like the improvement. And also students are being able to be more independent by using this process, and teachers are able to differentiate, and they're differentiating in a way where like you can tell if one student's reading a chapter book and another student's not, but from this, it's kind of like they're on their own pathway and they're able to differentiate in a way that protects students' dignity. For line item 108, we are utilizing iReady and its associated materials. So what we're doing is for iReady, you're able to pick out different things for students to do and like ways for them to focus, and then also supplement that. So if I'm going over like fractions in class, then I can choose an iReady lesson. So we're using iReady in a different capacity, but we also don't have students on iReady 24/7 within the class. So we're making sure we're using it with the purpose and also that it aligns with what we're doing in class. For line item 111, there was an increase in costs for music repairs and maintenance. And for line item 112, we have the music field trip, and this accounts for field trips and the associated bus transportation.
Is that new? Have they not had a field trip before?
They have.
Yeah.
They go to the Good Speed Opera, and they've also went to, I think, the senior center this year to sing, but this is something that they've done this year as well.
Coast Guard Academy too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at that field trip list. Doesn't DACO give you a discount if you're staying in town?
Sometimes they'll, totally make it free, but we plan on not getting it free.
Okay, makes sense.
A lot of times they will just. They'll
I think
compliment
to the
it for-
senior center. it
Yeah, senior
was
center, they usually,
Gifted.
but for budgetary reasons, just in case,
I get it.
I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Sorry. For music, instruction and equipment. A CD recorder and also replacement of instruments. That's what contributed to the bit of the raise and the CD recorder. It's a way for us to like record CDs for students like to sing along. They're the CD player that we currently have, it doesn't do that. For line item 126. Oh, this is coaching wages. But this goes along with the middle school track team, or the one for the middle school track team and the associated costs with that.
So this was just kind of a reclass, just for your information, when Mr. Bosworth put it in, he put it all under sports officials, the entire thing. So we just split it out to, there's so much for the coaches that would come out of coaching wages, and then there's so much for the transportation, so it's not a reduction. It's just kind of a reclassification.
For line item 128. There was an athletic trainer and expenses for the track team. The athletic trainer was since removed. But the cost for the track team or expenses for it is still there.
The athletic trainer was only in addition for the track team? Is there another athletic trainer we have for the other sports teams?
No, so we wanted one so that they would be there, like if there was a like a game, but it wouldn't just have been for the track team.
Right,
But we
so
currently don't have one,
for any of our sports teams.
not for middle school. For line item 129. We have transportation and associated costs, including expenses for the track team.
While you're on that subject, we have the 2 track coaches in line 126 and then 129 has the transportation. Do they need any materials? Or I would assume if they're gonna go to the high school, they would use what they have there or. But you would miss uniforms when you need uniforms.
Uniforms are on 131.
Yeah.
They're all included.
One
Cost.
Oh, look at that,
Yeah.
131.
130. But we would be able to use the materials that they have at high school.
Okay,
Please don't ask me what the materials are. I'm still studying.
all I can think of is a hurdle, shot put, I don't know if they do that in school. The really tall jump thing.
For line item 136. We have speakers, so that'd be like Kendrick Moore, and supervision for games. And that's out of the student activities. For line item 138, again, student activities, but I put cups for creating messages on the fence. I know like the messages that we have now, I think it's like be kind, but we wanted to put like inclusivity, like something that we're doing now. And then maybe even like changing it up, but the cups for that so that we can brand our school and even have students a part of it. Resources to support building thinking classroom, opportunities for student recognition. And noisemaker take over the materials. And that is a really big part of our school. It's really cool to see, like the students being able to flip the classroom with the teachers. So you have 8th graders going into 4th grade students' classroom and teaching them valuable lessons that they found. And that is something that the students really look forward to. We have one that's gonna be upcoming in about February. And the students, they practice and they plan for it, and it's very much student-led. And next we have gifted and talented. So I'm going on. So line item 140. We added 800 for food and drink for the expo events. And the last expo event, I think, there were some amazing cookies. They were so good, but the food was really great because it's camaraderie, it's coming together, and it was an all around great event. And then line item 142. We have the Thinking Cap Kids Bowl mock trial team competition. Connecticut Democracy Center History Day, regional competition, BT Odyssey of the Pine competition. In all, they do a lot of great work and in the classroom, and they give back, and they're also extending their education. So that's what we find here.
Laurel, do you have any questions?
Hey, I guess I don't have any questions. However, I guess I do have one question.
Okay.
I'm happy to see the track budgeted in here. I think that's exciting. I think the kids are going to be super excited if that can work. I would really love to see it work. What percentage are we asking in all of these lines from 126 through? I'm going to assume 131 is at the end of the track and the rest is just general athletic stuff. It looks like everything from 126 to 131 is exclusively track related.
The increases would be track related.
Yeah.
Well, that's not actually completely true too, because the transportation costs are it's going up anyways, so.
That might be hard to
Right,
figure.
that went up as well.
Well, we have
So
a
portion
line
of
here
what-
for including expenses for the track team. So we have taken that into consideration. So, but part of that would be other athletic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you have in your packets, the athletic budget. And it's not easy to read because it's tiny. But you can see the areas where he included track.
Ours are listed by teacher name.
All the way at the back should be athletics. Summer teacher name, it should be in order. So it's by department and then the teachers within the department. So it kind of goes up, but all the way to the end before student activities, you have student activities and then gifted and talented
Before student activities.
before student activities,
Yeah,
before
that makes
enrichment,
sense.
right before student activities. It's all your middle school. It says Bosworth on it. So anything for Mr. Bosworth, you can see the individual items that he added relating to the track. So he increased the, so you'll see the $5,528 for the coaches that I moved into coaching from where he had it.
All right, hold on. Let me just try and figure out, because this is a little bit. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
So,
There's some of Cindy's handwriting on it.
But yeah,
yeah, I see his name. I'm on the pages, but I just want to see like, okay, so here's track coaches.
Includes coaches, uniforms, transportation.
so coaches is on that page.
And the next page.
Next page is transportation, and he had for track an additional
Uniform.
5,000, or additional 1,000 for 5 away meets.
And that's for the track?
That's for track buses, yep.
Wait a minute.
So he has transportation, fall, winter, spring, unified buses, track buses.
Thank you. All right, I was on the wrong page.
And then on the next page, he has track uniforms at $2,000. Which is general supplies.
And so cross country would be included in that as well.
I don't have a name.
No, there's a separate line
I think
item
that's
for
a-
other
think
sports
that's a different
uniforms.
sport.
There's
Yeah,
one
it's a
that says sports uniforms and one that says track uniforms.
And then the track meets, okay, I see that. All right. Okay, thank you.
And then the only other thing on the last page, he did add on the athletics dues and fees. You'll see he added $500 or sorry, $800 for fees to participate in the away meets for tracks.
Yep.
And then he also added $650 because he accidentally left off the cheer competition. So that is added into the budget under the superintendent side.
All right, say that again, Cindy.
So do you see the page where it
Yeah.
says Bosworth athletics dues and fees?
Yep.
Okay, if you go across, you'll see the very last line is $800 for fees to participate in the track.
Yeah,
And then you see my scribble.
yeah.
My scribble is the $650 that he accidentally left off for cheer. So I just added that back in, so. your
Okay,
total
but that's on top of the 800.
The cheer has nothing to do with track.
That's
The
what I
total
thought.
is 2,490 and I
$650 to do with
added
cheer.
650, so the
Okay.
total is 3,140.
Thank you.
So those are all the track things that you'll see within the budget.
Okay.
Are you all set, Laura?
I am, thank you.
Sean?
No, no questions at this time. Well, ask the
No, I don't
question.
think that makes any sense.
Pretty cut and dry. I don't really have any questions. Wow. Dr. Northcutt, that was pretty fast. Before we adjourn, is there anything you guys want to specifically see? And, well, we can adjourn, but we're not a forum. Is there anything you want to see in the middle school?
Meaning like, well, that,
Yeah, classroom or, that's why we're doing the budget meetings for each school at the school
Yeah.
in case there's something you want to see specifically.
Nothing I haven't already seen. I love the
Yeah.
track team. Hopefully that can work out. I love the 3D printing and all the hands-on stuff that we've incorporated.
And the building thinking classrooms are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, I appreciate it off
Yep.
like the screen time and on to,
Absolutely.
That was Dr. DeBruda. I learned about it through her and she sent everyone to PD for it.
Yeah,
that's
that's,
pretty
Take
cool.
everybody with me,
that's all.
day or night.
Nothing else, Rusty?
On the 3D printers, does the Ray board get involved in all? with
No,
middle school? I know
no,
we
they would
ask
have
this
to
question
change.
every year.
They would have to change the parameters of the, you know.
Hmm.
They may in the future, but not at this time. They're not set up for that, although the school is called Hailed Ray
Yes, we
Middle
noticed
School.
that.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking, but every
thank
year we
you.
can still ask the same question.
course.
Can we get them to help?
Yeah.
More, because they help us a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.